Hi, everybody. Welcome back to See On Live here on NRATV. I'm Bill Whittle, sitting in for Colleen Noir. I believe he's back on Wednesday. And we're going to pick up our conversation with our friend Chuck Holton, who's live from Paris right now. Chuck, let me just set up a quick question for you, and then I'll let you kind of go with this. I live in Los Angeles where, people are trying to get human rights for broccoli. And I've heard anecdotally from three or four different people who are conservatives in Hollywood. That's how many there are here, four of us. But they basically
Mm-hmm.
said that just before the Rodney King riots, they were saying, how could you have guns, you savage, you barbarian, all of the stuff we hear all the time. But when the city started to burn down, all of a sudden they got calls saying, hey, do you have some kind of a piece you can lend me just for a couple days or so on? So the reason I bring that up is this. We have this introduction in Europe of large numbers of people, as we talked about in the first segment. We're not showing a whole lot of gratitude or not in any way interested in learning the French ways of doing things. They want to come and do their own customs, and that includes, picking up women. So my question to you, Chuck, is this: what do you do if you're a Frenchman and you are determined you want to defend yourself? Do you have any options at all in a case like that?
Bill, we went to a gun store in Paris, which kind of surprised me. There was one, considering the incredibly draconian gun laws that they have in place. But we walked into this gun store. It looked very similar to many gun stores I've seen in the United States. There were all kinds of pistols hanging on the walls and some rifles stacked on the rack in the back. And I thought, wow, this is surprising. And then came to find out, after I talked to the gun shop owner for a little while, that all of those guns were, let's say, less than lethal. So they were airsoft guns, they were BB guns, they were paintball guns, and they had these really cool, less lethal pistols that looked very realistic and fired a little foam ball that
Oh
would
boy.
probably tickle more than hurt. But they also had black powder pistols, single shot black powder
Hmm.
pistols, kind of like you would see. They do those trick shooting competitions and stuff like if you went to
Sure.
Deadwood or something, the guys
Yeah.
that play, Wild Bill Cody or whatever, that kind
Hmm.
of gun. And actually, this terror attack that happened at Orly Airport over the weekend, the guy was actually brandishing one of those and made people, dive for cover long enough that he could attack a female soldier and try to get her rifle away from her. They went back and forth over that for a minute or two, and then he was able to wrestle that gun from her. And it could have ended very badly, except
Yes.
that he didn't know how to run that weapon and he couldn't get the safety off in time and before the other soldiers around were able to take him out. And isn't that interesting that here we are, France, or at least Paris, is one giant gun-free zone, and the only people that could stop that guy once he was able to get a hold of a rifle were good guys with a gun. Now,
We
when
heard
last
we
week
heard
we
this.
talked from, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say I heard the news about an attack, that there was some kind of an attack at the Paris airport, and I was actually traveling. I was in a car, and I just got on my mobile device and looked it up, and I thought, oh, imagine my surprise. He says, I'm here in the name of Allah, and people are going to die today. Something very close to that.
That's right,
Um,
Bill. That makes 15 terror attacks in the last 13 months in France. And the body count now is approaching 300 civilians that have been murdered. And every one of the attackers was a radical jihadist. And so
we did.
they're seeing more than one attack a month. Just to put it in perspective, if you add up the total number of U.S. troops that have been killed around the world in combat over the last year, it's a whole lot less than civilians have been killed in France in the last 13 months.
Yeah,
And that's
and
amazing.
last week we did a report. You did a report live that we were looking at that was outside the scene of that nightclub massacre, and
The
after,
Bataclan.
well after the event, yeah, months and months after the event, we find out that they not just gunned down those people, they mutilated them, gouged out their eyes, basically cut off their genitalia, tortured them to death, that kind of thing. And the
Yeah.
media is determined to keep that away from the French people. Do you get a sense at all that just the average French national is getting to the point where he's had enough of it so that he's either going to change his government because Marine Le Pen's doing pretty well, or is there any sense at all from you, Chuck, that these people are looking for some means to defend themselves with firearms? Because I remember hearing that when this immigration wave started, you couldn't get a gun in Austria for love or money. They were just gone, flying off the shelves. to the degree that they had them on the shelves.
I'm sure that there are some people who would like to get a gun, but the people that we talked to in Paris this last week, over the last week, I think that's a lost cause. You point out all the things that happen. They say, yes, it's horrible. We've got to do something about these immigrants. And you say, what about changing something so that you can protect yourself? And they say, oh, no, that's not going to happen. No, that's not going to fly. No, we won't have guns in it. We're not going to have more guns here. And you're like, wait a minute. The guys who attacked and killed almost 90 people at Bataclan had AK-47s, grenades, and plastic explosive. I'm pretty sure all of those are illegal here. Can't you tell that those people don't have any problem getting those in? You probably saw just last week, they made a massive bust in Spain of military hardware that was coming in that's being distributed around Europe. But listen, these people that they're bringing in are coming from a culture where violence is the only rule. And you can't expect them, even inside of 1 or 2 generations, to just throw that off and become Europeans. And when they get angry, they're going to be violent. And
Chuck, let me ask you about something. Go ahead. Because I have such high respect for the work you did in our military and continue to do all the way around the world. It's not just a question of making the guns available. You just pointed out that even if they were available, the French people wouldn't use them. And we spoke about this briefly before, but I'm so fascinated by this terror attack that would have killed hundreds of people that took place on a train where a Muslim lunatic armed heavily was basically just about to open fire, and 3 Americans came out of nowhere. One of them or 2 of them were off-duty military, but the other was just a civilian. And alone among this entire train, these 3 Americans went forward, took this guy down. Somebody got cut up pretty bad, but they took this guy down. One of the Frenchmen on the plane said, I was getting ready to call my wife and say goodbye. We're about to be killed. It's not just the firearm, is it, Chuck? It's the sense of independence and the sense of responsibility that come with being a firearm owner, and it's built into our culture here in America.
Yeah, well, I call it, Bill, the warrior mindset. The mindset that says everywhere I go, people are going to be a little bit safer because I'm there. And, wherever I am, if somebody's in need, they're going to have a friend. That's the warrior mindset. And that is part and parcel with the American spirit, I believe.
That's right.
It's one of the things that makes America the greatest country in the history of this planet. And I think what you're seeing is around the world in quote unquote civilized countries of the West, they have gotten so prosperous. They've gotten so comfortable that they don't see a need for the warrior mindset anymore. They think, oh, we can do away with that. And they're working very hard to eradicate the warrior mindset, the warrior spirit from their young men. And virtually all of their young men, and even in the United States, are being raised by women. Their teachers are women.
Just being completely emasculated. All of the qualities of male strength that are here to defend these people, to defend the weak and the helpless, are being they're being bred out of our society because these idiots think that we're the source of the violence rather than the people who are protecting them from the source of the violence.
That's right. They're working for this unicorn utopia where there is no such thing as violence, and that just shows how. And this is coming from a guy who makes his living going to the worst places on the planet. And what I say is that just shows how truly ignorant they are about the reality of most of the world. I was just having a discussion today with somebody about taking cold showers. That most people in America couldn't stomach the thought of having to take a cold shower, but most people around the world have never taken a warm shower. If they ever if they even have a shower, they're taking cold showers their entire lives, and they think nothing of it. And it just goes to show just how soft we've become.
Yeah, that's right, and not just physically soft, mentally soft as well.
Yeah,
Chuck,
exactly.
It's people like you who've signed on the dotted line and who are out there on the ramparts who've given us the luxury to not have to think about these things. It's people like you that make this kind of security possible, and I try to tell as many people as I can reach that this whole Disneyland that we live in, which is called the United States of America, is protected by a force field that's maintained by people like you. So thanks as always for being with us here today. And Iwo Jima is one of the very highest places I've ever wanted to visit in my life. So take some pictures if you can.
I'll get you some sand.
That would mean an awful lot to me, actually. It really would. Thank you, Chuck.
All right. Take care, Bill.
Pleasure talking with you. We're going to take a break, but when we come back, we're going to be back with our friend from Town Hall, Kurt Schlichter. That'll be right here on CN Live on NRATV.